Today, I'm super thrilled because we've got a powerhouse with us on the show, and I'm sure you will all gain a lot from just listening to him. So I would like to welcome Adrian Tan. Just a short note of introduction. Adrian is a powerhouse on LinkedIn. He's one of the top global influencers, keynote speaker, as recognized in the HR tech space by AIHR. He writes profusely on the future of work, and you can find a lot of his work on adriantan.com.sg. In his previous life, he was a HR professional. He was an HR techpreneur. He created the Singapore HR tech market map. Really powerful piece of work for those of you who haven't seen it. Please go have a look. He also is an avid speaker. So he runs his own podcast, which is the Adrian Tan podcast, where you can go and have a look. And most recently, he's just launched an awesome course on LinkedIn on how you can grow and acquire 30,000 followers. So welcome, Adrian. It's a huge pleasure to have you here, and we really look forward to chatting with you.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. So maybe we could start by talking a little bit about the expertise that you bring, and you've got a lot of different areas that you cover. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the future of work and what kind of trends that you're seeing that people should be mindful of.
I think the key trends right now that we're seeing obviously comes in the form of being played and being affected by what we have gone through or still going through over the past 2 years, which is COVID-19 for those of you who are not aware. That has really transformed the way we work, because at the start of it, almost every country has to go through this countrywide work from home exercise. Whether you're ready or not, the virus doesn't care. You have to better be prepared for it. And a lot of us just have to get used to it, get accustomed to it. Regardless of the culture you're from, work from home it is. And that naturally also brought about a new set of challenges, a new set of problems, which is why in today's context, we are talking about mental wellness, we are talking about work-life balance, we are talking about burnout, etc., etc. And of course, moving forward, we are seeing a lot of companies taking a step back, sitting on the fence. Should we go back to office? Should we even have an office? We did it without office for the past 2 years. Why do we need an office now? Office is so expensive. Even if you do hybrid, 3 days in the office, 2 days from home, that 2 days is essentially just paying rent for nothing. So I think HR tech, when it comes to infusing in this space, is really trying to support this group of companies that are keen to go on hybrid basis. And for companies that's trying to go on remote basis, how are you going to encourage collaboration, ideation, things that, honestly speaking, still are better performed when you have that in-person contact. And of course, second of all, we've also gone through the mental wellness space, etc. A lot of time, well-being of the individual is indeed very important. It's no longer just about, you're not happy, let me give you $1,000 more, you'll be happy now. That's not the case. We're seeing people resigning left, right, center. We've talked about the great resignation. We are seeing that not just coming from the younger generation, but also a lot of mid-career professionals who are just, okay, that's it, enough. I want to pursue what I want to pursue, because for all I know, I may get COVID tomorrow and drop dead the next day. So a lot of people are really taking this opportunity to chase after their dream. And that, I think, also provide a wake-up call for the companies. How do I do better in order to retain my people? How do I ensure that my value system aligns with them? And most importantly, in a post-COVID environment, how do I finally start measuring performance based on outcome and not based on what time you clock in, what time you clock out, do you leave office earlier than me? Those kind of nonsense. So all those, I think we have reached a stage where people really realize, and when I say people, that includes employers, that all these are out the door. So the future of work will come into space to really help you fill up those gaps and to make sure that employers and employees come to the same win-win situation. And I have not even touched on things like AI, robotics, and all that, because these are things that for the longest time are always in the same sentence structure when we talk about the future of work. Just because COVID-19 happened, the evolution of AI, the evolution of robotics is not going to stay the same pace. It will still continue to improve. In fact, many companies right now, especially say in the F&B space, we are seeing they are gravitating towards robotics. Right now, you have robotic barista, you have robotic chef who can do fried rice, etc., etc. So there's also something I think every one of us should be very well aware of at the back of our head, that all these are coming into your space, whether you like it or not, and how can you be better prepared about them. And I think as much as, in Singapore, the government has always been very helpful in helping you to plan certain things. But I think ultimately it's up to the individual to just keep paddling on the water, how to stay ahead. Importantly, check out and be mindful of the next huge wave that you should be riding on. So all these things are coming into space right now at a very ferocious speed. And I think by really keeping your ear on the ground and having your finger on the pulse, that might help us to navigate better moving forward.
Fantastic. I think that's a really very holistic view. Let me try and pick up some of the anchors that I took away. So I think the first thing that I recognized in what you said is that we've gone through a lot of change, but it's not the end. We're going through another wave, and there's probably another one coming. So we need to constantly be aware that this is going to be the new normal, that change is the new normal, and we just have to work with it. I think the second thing which I anchored is companies are struggling in being able to align where the right balance is between asynchronous versus synchronous, being able to do face-to-face versus remote, talking about hybrid versus non-hybrid, and things like that. And the last one is that there is still a lot of scope in terms of automation, robotics, as well as just skilling that we all need to be mindful of. So great. I think those pieces are really crucial. Let me try and pick your brain a little bit more on the skilling part of the journey. Now, with all the changes that are happening, how do you see the half-life of a skill?
For people in terms of skilling up?
Yeah, correct. In terms of upskilling or in being able to counter some of the changes that are coming through that you spoke about, what do you see as the half-life of a skill, or what would you recommend people do?
I think, okay, firstly, when it comes to skilling up, I think for me at least, because I'm in Singapore, I believe we have a very good structure and good support mechanism from the government in constantly encouraging people to upskill, level up, to really keep abreast of what is needed, the kind of new skill sets that's required. On the other hand, you can also look at studies coming out from World Economic Forum on a regular basis, LinkedIn as well. It will tell you, these are the top 10 skills you have to acquire by 2030, so on and so forth. So those are definitely good indication. But I think ultimately, it is really about putting all this into practice. A lot of times, and I would say to a large extent, at least in Singapore, because we are such a paper heavy society, we just want to acquire that certificate, that diploma, that degree, and that's enough. That's enough. Okay, I got this degree from NUS, that's enough. But have you actually practiced it? That's another thing. Have you actually put your academic knowledge or the information that you gain into actual real life scenario? For most people, they have not, because that is not my responsibility. That's a school responsibility. They did not find me an internship, etc., yada, yada, yada. So I think the key differentiation here is really to apply those things that you've learned, which is why I personally started this, created this LinkedIn online training program. And I just want to backpedal a little bit. I am currently reading a book on how to take notes. I'm halfway through. And within the book, the author mentioned about a friend. And this friend reads widely, has this bookshelf of, I don't know, few hundred books, but do not have a single publication to his name. So I think what he's trying to share is, in this world, we are constantly consuming, but we are not outputting. We are not converting those input into output. We are just gathering, we're just piling on more food onto our buffet plate, but we're not even eating those food because there's no output. And I think the output here is really the key differentiation here. And because that is what I've seen in my career, by having those output, it would really put myself in a very different traction, in a different stage altogether. You mentioned earlier on about the HR tech market map. And that is really one of the pivotal moments for me. If I had not took the time, the effort, and honestly, at that point in time, it is just a pet project. There's nothing to gain, there's no sponsorship, etc. But I felt that, no, there's something I want to do given the knowledge that I have. And that really turned things around. So I would suggest for everyone looking at any form of skills, you have to identify how you can turn it into an output and how you can really put it into practice so that people know about it. That's one. And also, but importantly, is for you to gain the experience so that you can better amplify it and put it into your CV, in your blog, on your website, etc., and capture that attention and eyeball from the audience that you're trying to approach.
That is so powerful, I think, Adrian. One of the key gaps that we at Pace are trying to work with is really in being able to take people through that application journey. And one of the big factors of our learning has been that people tend to learn much more faster when they do it on a social medium. So using communities of practice or using mentorship is a great way to anchor some of that and be able to do that in a faster pace. So I like your two pieces. One, don't just try and collect paper, use that into an output. So even for organizations, I think that's going to be quite crucial. Is not having people who are very strong on paper, but they can't actually execute or deliver. So I think the delivery portion of it, or being able to apply it to make a difference, is huge. And the second thing, which is around the ability to draw on social learning, either through communities or through groups or through mentors, is also a key part of being able to amplify that faster. The third piece, which is a tangent that I picked up, I think is so crucial, and that I really would love to see how you can bring that. I'm sure you bring that out a lot in your course as well. Is how do you take what you've done and bring it out to the world so that you can get those recognition and that eyeball? It's not just about gaining recognition, I believe, it's also about sharing and learning. So that would be really powerful. So thank you for sharing those. I think these are really awesome. One question around your course itself. Who is it designed for, and what would you want people to know before they go and sign up for it?
Great question. So I had to ask myself the same question before I started, and I actually took up a course on how to create a course on Udemy.
Nice.
And
Nice.
One of the first few modules were to ask myself, who is it meant for? And of course, my first draft would, for people who want to grow, But then I realized, actually, this course is for myself, but the myself in 2020 or myself in 2019. When I did not know what I have to do, and I just have to go through the school of hard knocks and learn things the hard way. And I don't think people here like to learn through mistakes, because some mistakes are very hard for you to walk away from. So it's really meant for a younger version of myself in learning how to scale up your LinkedIn game. And why is it important? Because based on what I've gone through so far, LinkedIn has been an immensely powerful source of traffic. You can have you can have the best content, you can have the greatest writing, you can be a Pulitzer Prize winner, but it means nothing if no one gets to see it. And LinkedIn, for me, because of the space I'm in, has been very good in providing me that eyeball, in providing me with the attention. And I think that is why when I push out the HR Tech Market Map, when it first released, it got a lot of traction. And when I come up with certain new initiative like I did with my podcast, the traffic again come in. And of course, to each their own. Maybe you're looking at getting traffic to sell something. Maybe you're just doing it in order to drive an impact. It doesn't really matter. Importantly is whatever you want to create, you want to make sure that it plays a valuable part in society. Whether it's a piece of career advice, it's something that you've been through, a downtime, a mistake that you've made, all this can have very huge material impact on the people that you're trying to reach. And I think if we just take a step back from all our life, end of the day, we just want to have a meaningful life. And I think a meaningful life is by having a good positive impact on the people out there. And in today's world, it is not just the people that you manage to speak with face to face. It can be people around the world, because internet has facilitated that. You can reach out to someone in Africa, you can reach out to someone in Finland, it doesn't matter. It really helped you to widen and broaden the message, which I managed to do so over time. So the same thing, it's really for people who wants to drive their message to a wider audience and to do it in a very structured manner so that they can achieve their end goal in the shortest amount of time. Because it took me, I was one of the first few people who joined LinkedIn when it first started in Singapore. I remember when they first opened their office in Singapore, it was at AXA Tower. They have like 20 people. They started with 12, then it grew to 20. And a few years later, I joined them, and it was really a very cowboyish town back then. There's no structure, things keep evolving. And it took me a long time before I can really get stable to really get my foot on the ground, to understand, okay, so this is what you have to do. And then algorithm changes, etc., etc. But I think over time, right now, I get a sense of what actually LinkedIn is looking out for, but importantly, what the audiences are looking out for. And I managed to condense all this into 30 over modules. And I hope all this will help individuals out there who are like the younger version of myself, trying to leverage on LinkedIn to drive their message and to do it in a much more seamless manner and to avoid all the pitfalls that I did over the past few years.
It's fantastic. I think that is one of the core value anchors of AtPace as well, is we try and share a lot of what people are going through so that people can make different mistakes. They don't repeat the same ones. I would really encourage everyone to go check out Adrian's course. I think it's going to be very exciting to do that. One last question for you. What advice would you give to professionals, whether they are just starting out, coming out of college, or they are in the mid-levels and they're trying to make changes and pivot and do things? What advice would you give them to further their careers?
I think it is really to test out the pivot, test out the idea. And before you test it, I think it's very much similar to how an accelerator would basically go through the curriculum with any startup. Before they tell the startup to, okay, just go to market, they will ask you to do your hypothesis. Once you have a hypothesis, you don't straight away come up with an MVP. You will do your customer discovery and customer validation. So how do you do validation? Because I was formerly a career coach, so one of the key things that I encourage my clients back then is to connect and speak with people who has been there, done that. So for example, I remember I had this young client. She was in one of the big four doing taxation. For some reason, she wants to get into the relocation space. And we managed to identify someone who is like the older version of herself, who during her earlier years was also in one of the big four and somehow managed to move into the relocation space. So my advice to her is connect with this person. Let her know that this is what you're going through. You like to get career advice, because psychologically, your target audience will be keen to help you, because in a way, they're not just helping you, they're helping the younger version of themselves, who most likely did not manage to get anyone to help her. So you have to go through with brute force. So you want to go through a lot of that to get the validation, because many times we see things from the other side of the fence. The grass is always greener on the other side.
That's so true.
And recently, I actually got to know this statement. The grass is greener on the other side because it is fertilized by bullshit. Because you do not know what's out there. So you think that the grass is greener. It is greener, but it's all bullshit. So by getting honest, heart-to-heart talk with people, offer to buy them coffee, that $5 Starbucks is worth the amount of tips and advice you can get from them, it will help you to validate your hypothesis. And once you get a good sample size, then you will think, okay, so what do I do next? How do I move forward? Maybe by moving forward could be creating a blog to write about the content. Maybe like me, you can try to curate all the players in this field and try to come up with a market map. You can do a podcast about it. You can do a video about it. Basically, content play is always the easiest. Whether you are an engineer who is keen in train engineering, maybe you're in aviation or in pharmaceutical, coming up with new drugs, anyone can start off by becoming a content creator. And that over time has, of course, helped me to achieve where I am today in terms of HR tech, and even helped me to acquire my job 2 jobs ago and got myself into an enterprise HR tech company. So I think that is the key thing to do. You don't have to go all out. You don't have to quit your job and then go all in. You can do that if you want to, but just be aware that there's an alternative, which is to just take it as a pet project. Do it on the side. Do it on a Sunday morning when you're free. Do it on a weekday evening when all the kids are asleep. Just put in that 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, collect your thoughts together, put out a website. And along the way, you learn so much. You learn so much about yourself. You learn about web development. You learn about SEO. You learn about social media marketing. And all these are skill sets. Even at the end of the day, you realize, okay, this is just a pet project. This pivot is not working out for me. You still gain so much out of it. You've learned so much out of it.
That's true. I think a couple of things that I really took away. One, find people that you want to be like and ask for their help. So find your own board of mentors who can help you with different elements of what you want to achieve. Always be respectful of their time, of course, because they are also busy and they are also doing a lot of stuff. So I think that's an important part. The second thing is you don't have to quit your job to really do what you love. because you can always make time for it. And I think that's a really interesting piece, because a lot of people tend to look at it as, oh, if I need to stop. So I think the point is that you can do a number of things together till the time you gain traction and you pivot and you're able to know that, yes, this is what I want to do full time and I'm ready for it. So I think those are two very, very crucial things. And the last piece, I think, is the fact that it is always about pivoting. So learn through others, learn through your own, and share as much as you can, whether that's through a blog, whether that's through posts, whether through your own circle of communities. Just do that. So thank you for sharing that. I think, Adrian, this has been hugely inspiring. The last question for you: how do people sign up for your course, and where do they reach you if they need some help from you?
Well, firstly, in reaching out to me, obviously LinkedIn is one way. You can just search for Adrian Tan on LinkedIn. I also can be found on Facebook, Twitter, although I don't tweet as much. In terms of my course, you can go to adriantan.com.sg under resources. You'll be able to find it there.
Perfect. So I really wish you luck with the course. Thank you for sharing this insightful moments. And I will be continuing to cheer you and look to welcome you back on another live stream soon.
Thanks, Ravi.